welcome to Sonali's book club, and I'm really, really excited to have you on the book club. And see, we've been doing a lot of conversations on book club, and the book club has seen me through a lot of journeys in my life, and it's been an integral part of it and has uplifted me, I would say, through a lot of things. And I've spoken to various authors, I've spoken with various people, and through this book club, the interactions have been immense. But I must say that this time round, I don't know what I'm going to say, because I have nothing, how do I say it? See, I'm at loss of words, because I don't know what to say when I read this book, when I see this book. When I got to know the concept of this book, just the thought of it is so overwhelming is a mild word. And when you read it, it has left me speechless. And I just feel that, what can I ask you? It just sounds so trivial, asking you these questions. So this is one conversation which is going to be one-sided, and it's going to be from your side, because I just want to listen. I don't want to say anything.
So how would you suggest that I lead it?
So first of all, shall we start with let's start with the 2 questions that the members have sent,
Sure.
Maybe that can kind of trigger off and start a conversation. Yeah. So one of them tells me that Remnants has been my favorite read in a while. It's a book I recommend the most. Such beautiful and gutsy writing in today's age. The book, through the chapters and preface, could only introduce a small set of all people Aanchal interviewed for her book. If she could share some of the anecdotes from other interviews. That's one question. The other is, why am I doing this without my glasses? No wonder I was struggling. I'm currently reading this wonderful book after I saw the recommendation on SBC. My only question is, how did Aanchal manage to deal with various emotions she must have gone through while penning so many distressed stories of separation and memories? Must be very tough. As a reader, I have to take pause in between the pages to just sit back and think about the bygone times and the associated memories people are carrying with themselves throughout their lives. So these, I think, kind of set the board for what we are all feeling. I suppose the thing that is different about this book is that a lot of books, I'm suddenly finding the words for it. A lot of books that we read are stories. Yeah. But here we are listening to the stories, but those, the material, because of the material being available and those things and, it just makes it so much more real. And then you're talking to the people who have been part of it. And it just takes you more into it. And you understand that this is not just some fiction or some story or history. Also, we look at history with a detachment. And hence you look at it as somebody's story. But when you hold the things in your hand, that story is in your hand, my God. It gives me gooseflesh when I think of it, and when I say this to you also. I could cry just now also with. And yet the beauty of the book is that it's not gory, it's not gross, it's not like it's just so beautiful, poetic, and it's just so poignant.
I think you outlined actually the aim of the book really well. It was, I grew up in the 90s in Delhi, and when I was in school, I learned about partition in the same way that everyone learns about partition in their history textbooks. But it didn't really give me a sense of ownership over that history, because it was taught with that detached lens of something having happened so far in the past. I never felt like it belonged to me. I never felt the need to go home and say to my grandparents, oh, did you live through this thing? Because I just felt like history can't affect us any longer, because it was taught in the same vein as the Second World War or the Korean War. And It was not like this is a history that will continue to impact the nation for a long time. So I think when I started having these encounters with people who had lived through partition, living history, as it were.
Right.
They started giving versions to me that could not be found in any textbook.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a nation to progress, it needs to reckon with history. We haven't done that as a nation. We haven't done that as a subcontinent either. No one has reckoned with, there's no reconciliation of partition yet between India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, which is why facets continue to fester between us. So when I was listening to these stories, the first thing that came to mind was, well, why are we not taught this?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the book is not gory. There's a really specific, well thought out reason for that. When we think of partition, I'm sure for you as well, the first image that comes to your mind is those trains and people climbing on them and the bloodshed and all the horrific things that we have heard about that time. That is the predominant imagination when it comes to partition. But we never think of the friends that separated, or the fiancés that separated, or the neighbors that would never see each other, or the friends that went to school together. And I feel like the popular representation of partition distills it into something that is only an event of violence, which is not possible because all these stories I was hearing were about life and about hope and about resilience. And there was sadness and there was violence, but it wasn't the only thing. So I felt like I didn't want to misrepresent the spectrum of emotion that comes with partition because it's so complicated. It's possible to feel anger towards the other, but also feel longing for the other side. And these are they're dichotomies that are difficult to explain. They're difficult to explain to people who don't have partition in their families as well. I've had several conversations with people from many parts of the world, and some feel it. Like, I know you are feeling it because I can see it and I can hear it in your voice, but some don't feel it. And I feel like if we forget that this happened in India and Pakistan, and if we just think about it as a kind of cataclysmic event of humanity and look at it through that lens, then it transcends all geography. It is in the same sense that we can relate to events of the Holocaust and relate to stories and feel for it because we feel empathy.
Yeah.
That's it. So I think that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave something to my generation and to future generations that wouldn't only think of partition as an event of violence and maybe Pakistan and Bangladesh as the other, because we are so quick to judge without ever realizing how similar they are to us. So it was to lay a foundation of some sort of alternative history.
When you say this is you put it beautifully, and like you said, if we don't deal with history and if we don't acknowledge it, then we continue in the same path, and you only learn from it and understand when you can look at it and learn from it and then feel the empathy.
Yeah.
So that absolutely. But when you started, that wouldn't be the reason why you started.
No, not at all.
It would have been something small that would have triggered it off, and that's when this whole thought came through.
Yeah.
How you carried it forward is where all these thoughts must have come through. But what is it that started it?
I mean, all of this I'm saying to you in retrospect. Now 8 years have passed since I started this work. So a lot of things I can look back and say, okay, this makes sense, and put it in a poignant way as well, because I have gained maturation over the years. But I think at the beginning, it was such a nascent thought. I encountered 2 objects that my mother's family had carried from Lahore. And I was firstly shocked that 23 years of my life had passed and I'd never seen these objects. They were a ghada and a guz. It was so mundane. And the ghada was used every Sunday to make lassi in front of us.
Yeah.
So I felt really silly that I hadn't asked. But then it kind of just, when something sticks to you, you kind of get obsessed with it. So I just started thinking, like, what did people bring? Because I suppose as people of the subcontinent, we are obsessed with things. Our houses are littered with things. We don't throw things away. It's such a painful thing to walk into someone's house and see their, collection. But do we give importance to objects that were companions on such tumultuous journeys. But I mean, again, this is like a really well thought out thought. At the
Yeah.
time, it was like, सब लोग क्या लाए थे? Then,
Yeah.
you know, what did they bring? Did they bring utensils? Did they bring these gharas and gas? And then it was just out of curiosity. I started asking, of course, I was so young. How would I know people who crossed over 66 years ago? So I asked my grandparents, then I asked their friends. Then my parents own a small bookshop in Delhi. So anytime someone would come to the shop, they'd be like, do you know anyone who's come from partition side, you know,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Pakistan? Do they have anything? And it
Yeah.
was, you know, the oddity of the project was that I was looking for things. I wasn't like, tell me your memories of that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, tell me about this pen, and through the pen, we're going to find a way for you to talk about your history. So I feel like it was a kind of odd, fun, you know, project that became really heartbreaking as these conversations became really serious.
Do you think somewhere when you say that your parents were asking, people who came into the bookstore and all of that, it kind of became a project which
Family
they
project.
adopted?
Oh yeah, no, for sure, a family project. Like my aunt, my Masi would go for a walk in Defense Colony, and there are a lot of elderly people from the defense sector that live there. So they'd, anytime she would encounter someone, she'd be like, "आप वहाँ से आए थे? आपके पास कुछ है?" Like it very much became this collective history project, and I think that at the end also the book is very much it's a collaboration with so many people. You know, I could have not done this on my own without people telling me things. I could have not done this without the help of people introducing me to other people. So I am very much in acknowledgement of the fact that the book belongs to everyone, even though it may
You
have
feel
not been
you
mine.
are what you would call the Zaria?
I don't know. That's a really big like responsibility to have. I do feel like a medium. Yes, I do, because I know that I have the ability to allow someone to descend into themselves and tell something vulnerable. You know, because everyone can't do that. You have
Absolutely.
to have a certain amount of patience, a certain amount of respect for history, people's
And
history, and empathy. Exactly. So you have to be open to the fact that every day something about your thought process may be challenged because of what someone else will tell you who is different from you. And this happened to me a lot in Pakistan. There was a lot of unlearning that happened to me in Pakistan. But I had no choice. I had
can you tell us more about the unlearning?
like so for instance, in India, a lot of the people I interviewed were people who had no choice but to come to India. But there were, Hindus and Sikhs. And I come from a Hindu family. Now, when I was in Pakistan, though the conversation in Pakistan is similar, it also has a shade of nationalism attached to it, because if partition was the loss of Indian landmass, it was also the creation of the Pakistani state. And there is pride with that. You know, you can't negate the fact that someone has gained nationality. So you must be
Yeah.
respectful of that fact, which already messes up your mind a little bit as an Indian. And you have to watch what you say. So I'm sitting, I remember, with a couple, a really elderly couple, and the gentleman is telling me that in Aligarh in 47, he was nearly massacred by Hindus. And then his wife starts on and says, Hindus are very intolerant, you know, they were यहाँ लाशे वाशे मतलब सबको मार रहे थे and ऐसे हैं वैसे हैं. And now I'm sitting there I was 24 when I first went. I'm sitting there as a young woman, Pakistan for the first time, hearing these things about Hindus, not quite knowing how to behave. And I think, I swear, I felt in that moment that they thought I was a Indian Muslim.
Yeah.
So I remember, and I heard this on my recording, because I transcribe my interviews. So I say, आप जानते हैं ना कि मैं हिंदू हूँ? And they said, नहीं, तुम तो बेटी हो. And so it's so complicated because
how beautiful is that?
I mean, it's beautiful, but it's
so human. I mean, beautiful in the sense of this is so human.
It's so human, exactly. And it's the same reason why when Indians and Pakistanis meet overseas, there is no bitterness between us. It's immediately like, Are, तुसी Punjabi बोल रहे हो? we are Punjabi,
Yeah.
we have this immediate connection. But I feel like when we are in India and Pakistan, we are more territorial of our territories. So sitting in Pakistan as a Hindu, Indian Hindu, I was very, like, it just messed with my mind that all of a sudden, because they had gotten to know me, I wasn't the other anymore.
Yeah.
I was a daughter. I
Yeah.
had become part of that family. And to be honest, I'm still very much in touch with them. We talk all the time because you do start to make this very odd family.
Yeah.
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 So the other thing in Pakistan was how you can, as an Indian, pretty much embed yourself in the social fabric, and no one will know that you're Indian until they find out that you're Indian. So I wrote about this in my next book, where I was getting my nails done in a salon, and this manicurist, she asked me, "Ke, Bibi, tusi kahan se ho?" And tusi Karachi se ho, Islamabad se ho, because I didn't have the Lahori twang.
Correct.
And I said that मैं दिल्ली से हूँ. And she drops my nails and she looks at me, and her voice is like really in a whisper, and she goes, "To see Bharat se ho?" And in my head, the concept of India and Bharat is very separate. So I said, मैं India से हूँ, हाँ मैं दिल्ली से हूँ. And she goes, तो आप हिंदी क्यों नहीं बोल रहे हैं, और आपने हमारी तरह कपड़े क्यों पहने हैं, एंड आपकी बिंदी कहाँ पे है, आपके जेवर कहाँ पे हैं. It was this idea of what an Indian woman should look like is so driven by Hindi serials.
Yeah.
Like even my name was so filmy, like Aanchal, आपका तो नाम बड़ा filmy है. Yeah, I would hear this all the time there. But I think that manicurist wasn't prepared to find someone who was exactly like her.
Yeah.
So I think I tried through the book. I mean, I try to break some of the myths that we have come to cherish about the other side.
Even when you mention about Radcliffe and what, so the fact that when you mention that, everybody who was part of, or when you talk about the lady with her pearls, and when she says that she fought for it and she wanted the separation. Yeah. But after having everything that they had, it's when they went to Pakistan that they've never gone through what they went through, the hardships that they went through.
Yeah.
So it's like the suffering was on both the sides.
Absolutely.
And I think the lesson that we need to learn is that it's very easy, ideas and thoughts, very easy for a few people to kind of formulate them and have the charisma and so drive it and to make it happen. But on ground, it's the millions of common people who are affected, and you have no idea how that's going to affect them.
Yeah.
And when you see what happens, it's just, this is such a huge lesson. And if we don't talk about it, we're going to keep making the same mistakes as a subcontinent.
Yeah, we are. Like the partition hasn't finished. Its effects are ongoing.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's the Northeast, whether it's Kashmir, whether it's in houses only, like the feeling of, the simple feeling that you can't take your grandparents back to where they were born.
Yeah.
The visa is so hard. It's so impossible. So I feel like that's a constant reminder of the fact that things haven't settled.
So the beautiful thing that I found about this was that because we were not being so, can I use the word dramatic about it and, jingoistic about it, the book is not being that, and it's so real, and human. And you realize that eventually what we keep saying, it's lovely in songs and in poetry when we say human beings are human beings, its border is man-made. But this book tells you that, because the same thing, the be it the Mangtika or be it that strand of pearls, it could be on either side and you wouldn't know if it was Indian or it was Pakistani.
So that's the other reason why I chose not to put the chapters in order of their nationalities, because you really don't know whether someone is Indian or Pakistani. I'm trying to divorce myself from anything that's further divisive.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this book. And it's just, like you said, even if we feel that, oh, I have the empathy. And then, there are a lot of times when people tell you, look, you've been away and you're not people on the border who have been through it. Yeah. Those families know. So you don't have the right to really kind of uh, say have empathy and stuff like that. And you know what? Till today, I felt yes, I get it, because you know what? We've not been through it, and it's so hard what they've been through. Maybe they have a right to say that. But what this book shows me is that I'm not so wrong in what I'm thinking, and that that I don't need to step back and say that, oh, I need to be respectful of what that family has gone through. I can say that no, I understand, and I can empathize with what you've gone through. But what this book tells me is that human beings on either side have gone through the same thing. And the sadness, and it's the same. And again we come to the same thing. Like when you did the unlearning, me as a reader, I have done a lot of unlearning also in this. And even without being the border state, or without being the family which has been affected by it directly, you still realize that all of us have, it has been a condition that has been passed on to us. We realize we've all been conditioned, we've been all frightened by it, and it's a trauma that we all carry in our psyche. And when you read this book, you realize that though I'm so far away from it and removed from it, it's so strongly in my psyche. So the subcontinent is still, I wouldn't say grieving, because you grieve when you come to terms with something. You've not even started grieving for what has happened, and it's high time we went there.
Yeah, the sad thing is that almost everyone from that generation has died.
But this book becomes even more important, that you actually managed to collect a few of these stories. What was it like when you actually held those things, and when you were hearing, like one of our members asked, what do you do with the story when you were listening to these stories and with so many emotions going through? I'm reading a book, I say, I need a break. I'm going to come back to it after I do a couple of things and compose myself. But you're sitting in front of them when they're talking and they're pouring this out. I am many times removed, and I'm so affected. What did you go through?
So I want to make it clear that the research for this book happened over a period of many years. And there was a big break between when I recorded the interview and when I would transcribe the interview. So you had an emotional break as well. And sometimes when you're sitting with people, your main objective is to get them to tell you as much as they want to tell you. So you're very much in the zone. You may not be processing the nuance of what they're saying at the moment, but when you listen to their recordings to transcribe and translate their words, that's when it hits you. That's when it hits you that a father may have killed all his daughters, or a whole village may have been poisoned because they were fearful, or people ended up in a concentration camp. It really, that's when you really feel the heaviness of what you have recorded. And it's kind of immense, right? No matter how many years have passed, it will always be immense. And you always try to, I always did at least, try to put myself in that situation and see how I would feel. And truth be told, I would not be able to handle myself. I don't know what I would do if someone told me, you have to go to so-and-so place that you've never been to, you don't know anybody there, you don't have any money, any food, nothing, go. And you're never going to get to come back to your home. That disruption in one's life for no choice, people had no choice, it's such an immense thing. So when you're transcribing, yes, I think the enormity of their words really hit me then. But then the best way to read the book is slowly. I think the person who takes breaks gets the most out of the book, because you have to be able to understand that it's going to affect you because you're human, and you're reading about the sheer adaptability of the human condition. Humans are hugely adaptable people. You know that better than anybody. You will fight anything that comes your way. But the means with which you have to do that are so varied that I think that you need time to process how other people felt, what they did, what they had at their disposal or not. So the person who reads the book slowly will benefit most from it. I have not been able to read the book again, by the way, at all. Maybe in parts, but I don't, I'm a different person than I was then also. I feel like I can theorize about the book because
Hmm.
I'm looking at it in hindsight.
Right.
But to embroider yourself back in those conversations is just too painful because
So
I can hear the voice.
started as a small thing. It started out as a whim, and
It
then
started
it kind
as a fun project. To be honest, I was in a master's degree and I was really tired of it. Because I was studying to be a master printer. That's what I did. I did copper engraving and etching, and I was
okay,
showing in galleries, and it was fun, but it was really exhausting.
okay,
So I took a break, and I said I was living in Canada. I took a break. I came home to India. I said
mm,
I'm going to take a year off. It'll be fun. And that's when I found these two objects, and I said, oh, this is interesting.
yeah.
What else can I, who else got what? And it just started really, really small, and then it actually became something serious that no
When did
one
it turn
even.
into?
Oh no, it turned into a book only like 3 years after I started.
Ah,
I started the research. I made it my master's thesis. I showed it in galleries. I talked about it all over the world. And then I said, I feel like I need to start writing this down because people of my generation and subsequent generations, if I know so little about partition, if I have children, they will know probably even less.
yeah,
And this is how information sort of disappears
right.
and human disappears. I do want to put on record that most of us learn about the statistical data involved in partition in school. We don't learn about the, the, the stories of people as if people weren't affected by it.
Right.
So it returns something to the generation that witnessed partition, and it is also sort of like a gift for future generations to not forget.
No, look, we cannot deny the fact that, like when I told you that, because even if my family is not directly affected by it, but all of us on the subcontinent, nobody can say that they are not affected by this. We've all been affected by it. Our policies are affected by it. Our politics is affected by it. Our social structure is affected by it. And so much of what we are taught and conditioned with is affected by what happened.
Yeah.
And nobody on the subcontinent can say that it has not affected them. So something which is so huge that we don't even understand. And now when you look back at it and you realize that how much it has affected.
Yeah.
So it's like the second, the third generation, even the fourth generation is going to carry that forward. We all carry the learnings from our grandparents, from our parents with us, and they're using it in our daily lives.
Yes, they're going to carry some version of it. Also, I feel like it's so different how people experience partition. Like in the North, it's partition. In the South, it's independence. Even that is such an interesting thing because the South wasn't impacted by the violence of partition as much, right?
Yeah.
So in Punjab, it's as different as in Bengal. In Pakistan, Gujarat, Sindh, Rajasthan, Jammu Kashmir, Hyderabad, it's so different. So I feel like also the versions are very important. How a single event impacted so many people in so many different ways.
Right. Yes, we celebrated and that was the idea. I wanted this on for our Independence Day month, Independence Month. That we talk about independence, we're celebrating it, but there are so many that we are all affected by, an event that none of us are really talking about.
So I have a question for you. After reading the book, did you look at Independence Day differently?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, I would say that not even the whole book actually, just the thought of the book when I saw the book and I said, that was the reason why this book was selected for the month that it was selected in, because I wanted to read it earlier, but I said, no, I want this to be the book. So the thing, I don't know if I've ever shared this before, but the thing with me is that, I know you can really get stories out of people. But the thing is that, look, everybody has an opinion, and we're all evolving and we're all growing. And I think social media is amazing and can be a wonderful tool, like any other tool or technology that can be wonderful if used properly and used in a nice way. And in the same way, it can be a horrible tool if used badly. So in the same way, I've always used social media or the book club as a way of seeing how I'm evolving and how I'm growing. And this was very important, where you kind of put this out and say that we don't, just the fact that talking more about partition or separation, as the book that I have says, though you have remnants of partition and remnants of separation, which I want to know about. But before that, the moment we don't really talk about it, but we do need to talk about it. And that the moment you say we need to talk about it, it becomes a political situation. Yeah. And I'm like, why does everything have to be that? Why can't it just be because I need to know my past? I need to know the past of this landmass, this subcontinent, which has been through so many cultures. And it's just such a wonderful, wonderful mix of so many cultures. Why can't we just get to know it better so that we can make informed choices? Yeah. And so I'm not an activist who's going to stand there but this is my own way of kind of saying that, hey guys, let's read this book, Independence Day month. Let's look at it with a different point of view also. And if we can discuss it on the book club, great. I really wish it kind of, even if there are 10 people who start looking at it in a different way, I think it's a great start.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate that because, books like this, they need word of mouth because it's not a contentious book, but it's not like a super popular subject, but it is becoming now. Like, I think I'm actually like really struck by how many young people have picked up this book and are asking their families.
Yes.
And what I loved about your book club is, of course, the massive readership and how it benefits the author, but how it benefits the dissipation of knowledge as well, So I'm really grateful to you.
Thank you for even kind of saying that, because like I said, this is a passion project, and there are so many times when my team and we like going through there are so many books that come in, and there's so many other pressures that kind of start happening. But I've grown up and I have learned to say no to a lot of people, and because the bottom line on this is that this is something that it's a passion project, and I do a lot of things because one needs to do it. And that's life, and I have no complaints about it. But there are some things that need to be sacred, and this is one of those things. And this is my way of kind of passing on. However small, it's not very huge, but whatever it is, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful community, and I think if this community can exist, that means there is hope for humanity. That's what I feel.
Yes. I mean, I come from a book selling family, and it's a little bit depressing always to see how Amazon and all are like kind of killing the book trade. But and people always tell me that books are going to go out of fashion and in an archaic profession. But there is something so like there was a reason why, even though this project existed as a fine art project in galleries, there is a sanctity to this form of paper bound into codex. It means something, and it is treasured. It is passed. Books are passed down in the family, and I wanted to be a part of that history.
That word you used is so correct, because when we were discussing the book and I said, what did you think? I thought it was wonderful. What did you think of the book? And that's the word I used. I said, this is not a book. It's a treasure. It's something that needs to be treasured. This needs to be, it really does. But before we go ahead, before I forget, what was the difference? Remnants of remnants of partition.
So a number of reasons. The first, let's just preface by saying I was very young, younger than I am now. So sometimes when you are a young author, you can't always have your opinion accepted always when it comes to things like this with publishers. The book is called Remnants of a Separation in the Subcontinent, and it's called Remnants of Partition in UK, US, Australia, Canada, everywhere else in the world. And the reason for that is, you see, I live in the subcontinent, and I think that we as Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis have read, heard, understood a lot more about partition to have a nuanced understanding of the event. So in my opinion, partition, the word separation is like the antonym of a divorce for me. So we are not yet divorced. We are not completely ruptured. We are simply separated. That is not to say that in the future we will come together as one united landmass. That's never going to happen. But it may mean that emotionally we may be able to come closer. So for me, it is a separation. However, in the rest of the world, people are not so well acquainted with not just partition, even empire. They don't, I mean, schools in the UK do not teach about British Empire at all. It's only starting now in the last 2 years. Canada, America, they don't know anything about the extent of the British Empire. You know, the
Right.
sun always rises, you know, all that stuff. They don't know. So the UK publisher said that in the understanding of the international reader, partition only means one thing, which is the partition of India and Pakistan. And to put that as the title
Yeah.
is an immediate recognizability of that event. And in hindsight, yes, they were right, but also it really confuses readers.
Yeah.
And I constantly have to say, guys, it's the same book. Please don't buy them both. One is very expensive if you're not in that territory. I mean, I would feel stupid if I'm sitting in India and
So I know you feel strongly about it, but why not keep it remnants of a partition in the subcontinent also?
I don't want to. I mean, I don't know. Like, I use the word, but I feel like to give separation a place on the cover means to give it a chance. You know, to give it a chance to at least try to do what it's supposed to do. But if I say partition, then it's like, okay.
So right here, what I would like to bring to all the book club members also, that look, the easy way out was to keep it remnants of partition and avoid a lot of confusion, avoid a lot of heartache.
This came out first. Separation came out first, and partition was later. So my initial thought was always separation. And then, you know, as a young, like I said, as a young author, sometimes you can't always argue with your publisher because they know best and they know, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Publicity and marketing, and it will sell in our territory, and you believe them because they know their territory better than you.
Yeah.
But
the same thing, but remnants of partition would have worked as much in the sub.
It would have, for sure. 100%.
Immediate, it had that all the things of a what would you say, a catchy headline, you know.
Yeah,
so
it would.
It was breaking news in that sense, you know, if you go, what I'm saying. So it was an easy thing to have gone for, but the fact that you are still, you know, because this is the generation that is coming, and you are that generation, and for that generation to have separation on it, for hoping for an emotional coming together, is so beautiful. And again, like I said, like club gives me, this is something that always gives me that hope for humanity, you know, that we hear and we read such horrible things, and really it's tough times, and it's really not, there's so many I mean, you know, the world right now is going through so much of struggle, and yet these are the things that always gives me hope, and which always tells me that, you know, if this can happen, we can survive it. Things cannot be so bad. We'll make it. And you know, there are these lovely nuggets of beautiful stories that we all need to kind of look for, and not just get carried away in the hatred and the loudness and the noise that is all over the place. So yeah.
And I think just addressing your earlier concern too about jingoism and advocacy, to talk about partition does not mean that you advocate for, you know, I mean, I think that to talk of partition, sometimes people think that they can question your loyalty about nationhood and statehood, but it's not so easy, and it's not so black and white. And to talk with love about Pakistan doesn't make me any less Indian.
Yes.
It just makes me hope that in my lifetime, I will be able to return some part of a forgotten landscape to so many people's families, you know. I'm not any less Indian to be on a WhatsApp call with a 90-year-old man in Pakistan, you know, because he calls me Beti. That doesn't make me any less Indian or him any less Pakistani.
Of course.
It makes us people who have a shared history.
Yes.
And, you know, if we want to remember horrors, we must also remember losses.
Yes. And the stories of like you said, the resilience.
Yes.
How if they could, if our grandparents could survive this and form a life, and look at the life they've given us.
Yeah.
And look at what this country, or for that matter, both the countries, 3 countries have been born out of. I mean, the least we can do is, as the coming generation, is treat it with respect, and, you know, kind of understand that there is so much that has been handed down to us, and kind of have that reverence for what has been given down to us.
Yeah.
Definitely. What else does you've had this book out and everything? What is next that you're looking at?
Well, I'm really glad you asked. I have actually 2 books coming out next year, which is a bit surreal for me. So one is coming out in the spring, and it's non-fiction. It is a book I've been researching for a long time. Again, oral history. It is interviews with subsequent generations of partition-affected families. So children, grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren. And the question that I try to, I would always say when talking about remnants, I would always say, oh, partition is not a thing of the past. But I actually had no proof of that. I just felt that. So this book is asking people if they still care about partition and why. Why should partition still be relevant? And it is conversations about personal family history, about music, song, art, travel along borderlines. I'm really excited because there is no generational history of partition in a way that there are so many generational histories of Holocaust. Second and third generations always talk about the inheritance of Holocaust, but there is no place where second and third generations of partition survivors can talk about the inheritance of partition. So it is a way to make people like me and our thought process and our, I don't know, maybe the battle we have within ourselves when we think about partition, to make those experiences heard, seen, and acknowledged.
Right.
And it's coming out in the spring. And then I have a novel coming out later on in the year, which is a really scary project for me because it's fiction.
Mm-hmm.
It is set across 5 generations of a family, starting in the late 1800s in Lahore, where a perfumer's apprentice and a calligrapher's apprentice fall in love before partition, and they are separated because of partition.
Wow. Looking forward to this, definitely. See, when the way you've written this book, which, as you say, is non-fiction, but the way you've written it, I'm looking forward to your fiction also.
So am I. So I want to see the finished product. I'm in between edits right now, and fiction is so demanding in a way that non-fiction is not to me, because I'm so comfortable with that. But fiction is it goes deep inside you and says, what do you not even know you have, and now pull it out of yourself, and put it on the page.
Absolutely. But I think you will be a wonderful fiction writer also, because it's so beautiful the way you write. What I want to ask you is that all these material things that you saw, do you wish for it to be collected under one roof where people can see it and hear the stories and feel it?
So I thought about that a lot. And something really extraordinary happens when you're in the presence of these objects. There are also hierarchies of objects, by the way. If the object is really precious, like say that Mountica, or Azrahak's Basra pearls that are so rare, then it is immediately remembered and brought out and celebrated as something that's monetarily valuable.
Right.
But if something is a guz, it's almost forgotten. Or, something is a shawl, a pen, a book. These things may not be celebrated, but when you're sitting with someone and talking about these things for 2, 3, 4 hours, that value is heightened because of the value that the third person is putting into it. Like a stranger like me is like, look at this object, look at the, surface. And so the owner is like, yes, look at it. So, sometimes it would happen I remember Preet Singh, she showed me this beautiful, Pashmina shawl that her mother had torn in half and given half to her and half to her sister. And they wore it when they came from Quetta to Mussoorie. And I remember asking her, can I borrow this for my research? And at the beginning of our conversation, she was very nonchalant about the shawl. But at the end, when I said, can I borrow this? She said, no, no, it's mine. No, no, no. It's mine. My mother gave it to me. The I guess the ownership was
Yeah.
high, and I just couldn't see myself taking the objects away from people. If it's a temporary exhibit, I think that would be lovely. But something permanent felt really, I don't know, like, I don't know, it gave me like a wrong vibe.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not saying anything. It's because I'm thinking that, but oh my God, but these are the things I wish we could
Like, I think about,
preserve them.
yeah, I think about Orhan Pamuk's Museum of Innocence that he has in Istanbul, where he wrote the book and then he recreated every single object in the book into this like museum,
Yeah.
but it was a remake of all those objects. So something like that is possible, but I don't know. I thought about this a lot. Like, do I take it? Do I take it on loan? But I never did. I just took lots of photographs.
Yeah. Oh my God, something we should be able to do something about it. This
Yes,
is being like,
yes.
because
But
it's
you know,
wonderful to be able to go somewhere and kind of see it and so they're preserved.
this is what the Partition Museum is doing, right? There's so many objects in the Partition Museum that you can go and see. Like I was really taken by a sewing machine that's there, beautiful sewing machine, or there is a Fulkari coat. I remember these objects, and that is a way. Yes, you can go and you can feel intimacy towards these objects.
You think people would donate to this museum at some
People
point?
do donate. People are donating. Yeah, that's how the objects are there.
So once this kind of a museum is created, and that this object which you love so much is going to be preserved in a certain way, I think you might be able to, might be able to part with it and say that, yeah, future generations will see it and this will find a certain kind of a place. But till that is not there, I don't think you would want to part with that.
The Partition Museum actually opened in 2017 in Amritsar only,
Right.
but they do have a new space coming out in Delhi. But it still takes a little bit to make people understand why giving the object is important, because a child may see it and he may say, "हमारे भी घर में ये है, अच्छा इसकी क्या history है?" And this is why I'm such an advocate for objects which cannot speak themselves and yet hold such histories amongst themselves that they require human intervention sometimes.
Yeah. Oh my God, so beautifully put. Look, that was so.
I'm a material historian. This is like my daily, yeah.
No, but that's totally like so wonderful. Achal, I'm really looking forward to what you're going to come up with. And like I said, that the book that you have written, uh, it's just the beginning, I think, it's a treasure. Can you see? It's a treasure. Yeah. And I just really hope that this book is going to be like a start of a movement and start of conversations, which none of us are really having. And I do hope that today we might finish our conversation here today, but I do hope in the book club and in the coming days, this is one book that the conversation never really ends. I do hope that this is something that can be, passed on. And I would urge all my members also that whoever you can, this should be our gift to be given to anybody in this subcontinent, anybody who has roots in this subcontinent. I think that household needs to have this book, just so that we can all kind of come to terms with it. So this is the gift that we have to give to the generations that come. I mean, the generations that are coming are not really reading as much anymore, but I think this is one book that at some point, somewhere, they will kind of want to open and see and be drawn to maybe one story, and it can open a door somewhere. So from my side, this is what I would like to give to people. And I would urge everybody that this is what we need to give. This is what we need to give to the coming generation. This is helping me learn and unlearn a few things, So thank you.
Thank you. That's so kind of you. And I feel like there's so much gratitude towards you, because you open the book to so many more readers, just by just by the person you are and the following you have.
Very kind, but this book is not about how I've opened it. It is about the fact that you thought of it and you followed it through. We all start with projects, but we all don't follow them through to this conclusion. You did. So thank you, because I think you are right. Had you not done this, we would have lost a huge part of our history. And you've actually given so many years of your life and done it. Yes, definitely. You've enjoyed it. It's enriched your life. I'm so happy. But the fact is that you followed it through and
Yeah.
you've given us something that we would have never known we have lost.
Yes.
That's even sad, they're even more sad, the fact that when you lose something which you didn't even know.
Exactly.
How sad is that?
I do want to say that the book is also available in Hindi, and Punjabi is coming out in a few months, and I hope that gives way to more regional languages for people who don't want to.
When are these coming out?
Hindi is already out.
Okay.
And I think Punjabi should be out next month in October.
Would you send us the photographs of it or whatever? I think I'll get my team to follow up on it also. Okay. So that just that we can put these up also, that people can, get them and give it to parents and,
That's exactly it, right? There were so many people that said that, my grandmother doesn't read English, but is there a Gurmukhi out?
Yes, absolutely. So definitely looking forward to those books and those editors also. Thank you so much, Aanchal. It was so wonderful talking. So,
pleasure was entirely mine. It was such a fun one.
When I come to Delhi, whenever this pandemic ends and we all start I would love to catch up, and I would love to visit.
Are you kidding? I can't move. Sorry, this now that this serious part of the conversation is over, I am so still so stunned.
Oh my God, thank you so much. You're very, very kind, but I'm looking forward to actually meeting you, and I do want to visit this bookstore, and I want to see this bookstore. Because obviously this love for books has come from there, and it's amazing. Read the story of how your grandfather started it.
Yeah, it was really sad because he could never see me become a writer. He died 1 year before the book was out, and I always feel really sad about that. But I always also think that I'm continuing on the legacy in a.
But he knows.
Yeah, of course he knows, and my parents are running the shop in such a lovely way, so we would love to welcome you, and
I would love to be there. We will definitely do this as soon as the pandemic kind of settles down a bit and we kind of start getting some sort of a new normal going.
Yeah, although travel is just a bit freaky for me still.
Yes. I'm trying to get over that, but really, really looking forward to that.
Me as well. Thank you so much.